Hello everyone, we're back for practice. Welcome to the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix for FP2. 56 minutes on the clock, a lot earlier with the live stream compared to before. Well, not with the live stream, with the commentary. I didn't join until a few minutes later. Earlier on, we saw Oscar Piastri top the times in FP1 with a brilliant lap, and then we saw Lando Norris follow very closely behind, but the grid was very close in total effectively. The top ended with the top 11 all being within half a second of one another. That was Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton being in the top 5. Gasly was just behind Hamilton as well. Max Verstappen actually P7 right behind them. So it's all a little bit of a mix. We saw Gabriel Bortoleto finish ahead of their teammate just by a small margin. That's P9 and P10 for Bortoleto and Hulkenberg. But they did crush it, unfortunately. They did put it in the wall at the very final stages. Bortoleto is back out on track. It was luckily only a front end hit. And it was kind of a front wing loss. Very close to having damage on that front right wheel. If they did have some repairs, they would have only been minor, I assume, but they were lucky. They were very, very lucky to get away with that one, that is for sure. But what I want to have a look at with the teams, instead of luck, is the upgrades, as I had a few teams information for FP1, but now I do have I believe all the teams with at least their FP1 upgrades that they were running. I'm not sure if they're running them all in FP2. Williams and Sauber had none. So Williams and Sauber, although the Sauber in FP1 seemed to be really working quite nicely, and actually the Williams was very quick. I think it was Carlos Sainz who went purple in the final sector. They haven't had any upgrades brought to this weekend. Every other team has brought either minor or some major upgrades, mostly looking at Haas and Aston Martin with the big upgrades, and then there are a few other little changes for a few other teams. McLaren, rear wing downforce and suspension, we already looked at them earlier on. Looking for that downforce in the rear wing is going to be crucial around Imola. It's going to be very, very beneficial to the team, very beneficial to the circuit. And if they can maintain their performance with their kind of race pace and their longevity throughout a Grand Prix, then they're going to be incredibly strong and even stronger than ever before. But Red Bull are trying to come back at that with some cooling. Actually, they've copied a very similar design to McLaren, I believe. They've also got radiator upgrades or changes, suspension and wheel deck. So looking at cooling really to try and push the car, it does mean that there's going to be a little bit less of a focus on outright performance. But that being said, I completely forgot what I was going to say. Outright performance. With that being said, maybe if they can just push the car lap after lap after lap, it might be alright, because we've seen the Red Bull be very competitive in qualifying, and it's very, very competitive in one lap, and at the start of the race especially, but after a couple of laps it really seems to struggle compared to the McLaren. Allegedly that's because of the tyres, but is there maybe a bit more of a situation elsewhere, not only the tyres but some other cooling parts that could be a problem? We'll see how it goes. Currently, 52 minutes on the clock. Every car but one has set a lap time. That's George Russell, who is in P20 at the moment. Going nice and quickly in the first sector, not setting a lap time just yet on those fresh medium tyres already. It's Lando Norris who tops the times, 3.5 tenths ahead of Max Verstappen with Piastri in P3. Isaac Hadjar P4, Albon, Stroll, Lawson, Antonelli, Gasly and Carlos Sainz in P10, followed by both Ferraris. Then it's Behrman, Tsunoda, Colapinto, Alonso, Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Russell purple in the middle sector, and coming into the final few corners to now complete this lap. And we'll see what the Brit can do up to the line. DRS open just before the line as well. And it is a P2 for George Russell in the end. It's purple first sector from Oscar Piastri, who's going quicker, looking to try and take the top spot. Alonso nearly had a collision with a car blocking their lap. That's what we saw a lot of in FP1. This time it's the Alpine that blocks Alonso. Colapinto, that was in front. So that's going to be noted by race control. It's something that we saw, as I said, a lot in FP1. Yuki Tsunoda seemed to have an absolute nightmare in the first few corners. In the second chicane, it was actually turn 4 and 5, that we saw Yuki Tsunoda really struggling with a lot of traffic. Really quite frustrating, and I don't blame him at all, shaking his head. We also saw Max Verstappen. I think they were hitting their steering wheel as they were frustrated with the car, not necessarily the traffic. So I don't know if the cooling issues will help that, but with the brakes being the common occurrence with their complaints, maybe that's what they're trying to focus on, cooling the car so they can really be comfortable under braking. It's Carlos Sainz who goes quickest in the session. No purple sector. It's Alex Albon, his teammate, who does go purple in that first sector by a fair bit. Half a tenth ahead in one sector of his teammate as well. That's brilliant stuff here. 22.2 and a 2.79. So Albon's a little bit quicker in that middle sector as well. The final sector is a 5.96 for Carlos Sainz. Alex Albon over the line set a 7.34. So being, I was going to say a lot quicker. But no, they're not a lot quicker in that final sector. They're actually a fair bit slower. So, although they gained all that time in the first and a little bit in the middle sector, they do lose out to their teammate by just over half a tenth in the end. But those Williams are definitely really liking their performance at the moment. And James Vowles is proving his worth in 2025 so far. Hamilton may be a little bit distracted with the traffic up ahead going off. Although I'm sure they will have probably been able to dial that other car out as they went really in the way. Just a bit of a mistake on the exit of the 14-15 chicane. Or is that 13-14 chicane? I think it might be. No, 14-15 chicane, I was right. Need to trust it. Lando Norris in the meantime goes quicker. That's a tenth over Alex Albon. That's just under half a tenth away from Carlos Sainz. Lando is currently leading the time table instead of both being in the McLarens. Of course they are split, but McLaren and Williams, the old rivals who still aren't going to be competing against each other, it seems, this weekend with the McLaren being so dominant. But it's definitely not impossible in the coming years. Both on the same power unit, of course, with Mercedes. So it would be an interesting battle. The Ferrari is slowly getting dialed in, as we can see. Leclerc's managed to find a bit of pace in this session. Hamilton found some good pace in FP1, but Leclerc seemed to struggle a little bit. So now they've got to try and figure out what was going on. And it seems to be working. 17.0 Charles Leclerc had that put them P12 in the order. They've now done a 16.2. So a massive, massive step up. We're all on the medium tyres right now for all of the cars. I'm not entirely sure if I can get all the data on what tyres have been used. I want to see if I can. So we've got medium tyres only being used for everyone except from Alonso, I believe, is only car on the soft. So yeah, no one has run anything other than the hard or the medium or the soft tyre Hards have not been run so far. FP1, I can't remember if we saw a couple cars on the hards, but it does seem to be that people are avoiding it. A little bit early to do any predictions right now. So I'm not going to do a full prediction, but I'm going to say who I think is going to be having a strong weekend, which is going to be McLaren. I think Verstappen can definitely have a stronger weekend than Miami, but I don't know how strong it's going to be. I think the Saubers can have a strong weekend here. And I think Williams as well, which is an obvious statement. I don't think it's a risky one at all. But later on into the session, I think we'll give another updated prediction. And of course, tomorrow in FP3, ready for qualifying, we're going to give a prediction that we'll hope to get right, ready for that qualifying session. Because that would be good, wouldn't it? To get it right. Franco Colapinto currently going for an improvement lap. Up to the line, what's it going to be for the Argentine driver? A P10. And not so far away from the teammate, about 2 tenths. Although Gasly's just gone and improved on that one. So 3 tenths, just over 3 tenths, let's say. Colapinto has gone well here in the past in the junior formula, taking the victory on the final lap in F2. They know the circuit not only well from the junior formula, but they also know it in the car that, well, they're currently driving, but they're a similar car to what they're currently driving, as they have done some testing in, I believe it would have been the older Alpine car. So they should have some decent experience. The biggest thing that they're going to be trying to figure out this weekend will probably be the neck. I think next weekend they'll be trying to extract the performance, but it's going to be all about the neck this weekend. And trying to get that endurance that F1 drivers want to have. Alright, it's a hot day today. Track 34, 19 degrees C. Depending on where you are in the world, it's not that hot. But it's a lovely summer's day where the cars are going to be working at a nice operating window. Well, they should be. That's the thing. They should be. The Mercedes in the last couple of seasons or so seem to be working quite nicely in cooler conditions. So did the Williams as well. The colder conditions really suited their car nicely. I believe that's down to tyres. Can't quite confirm that one. But this is kind of a bit more of a standard temperature. So the cars are going to be, or the teams are going to try and get their cars working to that kind of average temperature ideally. And of course upgrade the cars accordingly, because you don't only do upgrades to a car, but you also do track specific changes as well. So that's what they'll be looking to do, and there'll be a lot of data going into that one. Now Lando Norris, not Lando Norris, it's George Russell up to the line, purple middle sector and into the top spot on the soft tyre. Not purple in the first or final sector, interestingly, despite being on that soft tyre, but still 2.5 tenths ahead of Lando Norris. And setting the pace, it's Alonso who has their best lap time on a soft tyre, or they've most recently been out on a soft tyre, I should say. Alright, looking at George Russell's time, 15.693. Or what did we see last year for the FP1 times in Imola, or FP2 times, a 15.9. So, 3 tenths ahead. We've got a 15.9 already for Lando Norris. Also for Carlos Sainz as well. So we were very close to actually effectively, yeah, not quite beating the FP2 top time, but since we've got Russell on the soft, we have found that to be the case. FP3 we saw 15.5, so we're almost close to beating the FP3 time qualifying. What did we end up with qualifying in the end? That was a 14.7 from Max Verstappen, a brilliant lap there from the Dutchman. Well, Oscar Piastri actually started second and Lando Norris started P3. Lando Norris then fought for the victory in that race. So it's all about the start, it's all about qualifying. There is a little opportunity to overtake here and there, and what would safety cars maybe do in this race, in this competitive field where you're pushing the limits? Safety cars could come about when it's difficult to overtake. Desperation can come through and get the better of a few drivers, and you can end up seeing a few safety cars, maybe even a red flag if it went really pear-shaped, but hopefully that doesn't happen and we can have some consistent racing throughout. But yeah, a 14.7 is the lap that Max Verstappen set in Q3. Will we get close to that one today on the soft tyres? I don't know. We're almost at the halfway mark of this session. Alrighty. Comments made. George Russell struggling on that soft tyre. So what we do see is that the C6 tyre has been brought. So what the C6 tyre is it's a softer compound. The softest compound that is available. And George Russell has used it. Didn't really seem to enjoy it. All the other cars are coming out to now give it a good shot. It's Max Verstappen who is going faster and fastest right now in the middle sector. But according to George Russell, the balance is worse. The grip isn't what they want. They're going to be struggling if that's the case throughout the weekend. And especially with everybody now on this rubber. It's going to be interesting to see how competitive they are. Oh, it's Verstappen in P2. Behind George Russell. Half a tenth under. Not too far away. It is only the first lap, of course. And George Russell got that lap in a little bit earlier on. But still managed to stay top for now. It's Oliver Behrman who goes to P5. It's Hulkenberg who goes to P11. Lots of cars, of course, are changing, but we're still looking to see what these soft tyres can do. Lawson to P9, jumping up ahead of both Saubers and his teammate. Purple in the first sector for Yuki Tsunoda, who's found some good form right here, right now, and they go right behind their teammate. It is almost a tenth away, but that is more like it from Yuki Tsunoda. Much more like it. They do get split by Isaac Hadjar, though, who has managed to find a middle ground between the two drivers and made it look a little bit interesting from Yuki Tsunoda. Isaac Hadjar performing absolutely masterfully so far recently. And I think Yuki Tsunoda might be a little bit worried about the Frenchman. Would Yuki keep the seat for the rest of the season, though? I don't know. So Charles Leclerc up to P3. And then we'll see Lando Norris coming through the final few corners to go across the line. And it looks like they're going to go fastest. Purple in the middle sector. And they do go purple in the final sector as well to absolutely smash the lap time of George Russell. Destroyed it. The question is, will Piastri be able to beat that purple in that first sector? The man who has never had a Grand Prix pole position until this season and has since gone and got as many as anyone, or more than anyone, in this season. Absolutely, flying, but through the chicane of 14 and 15 on the exit, just completely lost it on the rear end. Still purple in the middle sector, though. At the final corner, what's it going to be for Oscar Piastri across the line as they get a bit of traffic up ahead, but they didn't need to put their foot out. Just a little bit of dust in front of them, and they go marginally ahead of Lando Norris. Not faster in that final sector, however. That's where they would have lost their time to their teammate. 0.025 seconds. Carlos Sainz struggling with the steering wheel. They go to P9 for now. Or they stay P9, I should say. Wrestling the car a little bit in those final corners. A lot of cars just driving around on the track at the moment, going for cool-down laps. Few in the pit lane, but most are out. And all those quick laps have been effectively set. So from Lance Stroll. As Verstappen complaining about bottoming out, we saw Lewis Hamilton complain with the brakes, and we've seen Kimi Antonelli go off at the chicane in the final part of the circuit over the grass. instead of over the curb, so they should have saved their floor a little bit from too much damage, if any at all. Lance Stroll is going for their fast lap on the soft tyre. Currently ahead of their teammate, that's Fernando Alonso, who is half a second away, 4/10 back at the moment. Now P20 as Esteban Ocon goes to P16. Where will Lance Stroll put that Aston Martin, there we'll see in a couple of corners' time. Now, not entirely sure how this one's going to go, but Lance Stroll has been pretty confident around this circuit in the past. Are they finding confidence in the car this year and today around Imola? They do seem to be doing so, don't they? To P14 they go. Just behind Liam Lawson. I say that though, a 10th behind Liam Lawson. Just ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto, who had their crash earlier on. But Fernando Alonso having a bit of a miserable time at the moment. 6/10 away from Kimi Antonelli, who's had a couple of offs. Then Lewis Hamilton. Not too far away from them, relative to Antonelli at least. It's 2 seconds away though from Oscar Piastri as Fernando Alonso, which is a huge gap, absolutely huge. So Hamilton struggling with the brakes earlier on. It's also Charles Leclerc who's complaining about braking as well. So that Ferrari seems to be a little bit of a handful into the braking zones. As it's Hamilton who does go to P9 to find a bit of performance. Antonelli does improve, but only to P17 on that scrub tyre. But I want to look at Lewis Hamilton, 6.5 away from Oscar Piastri, and about a 10.5 away from their teammate, just over, I think, in the end. So they have managed to find some decent performance. Alex Albon pushes them down though. Carlos Sainz currently P11 behind, so Hamilton is in a Williams sandwich. Now, currently within half a second of the first place car is P7, Hadjar, 499 milliseconds away. I think that's correct. But it's Antonelli who is 1.1 seconds away, predicted by the locals to win this race. That is quite a big gap, even in FP2 with 27 minutes to go. You don't want to be seeing that from the driver that you're hoping to take victory. Big struggles on the steering wheel as well in the final couple of corners for Lando Norris. It seems to be that those final couple of corners are a bit of a handful to deal with. I'm not sure what you mean by that in the chat there. Ranger 79. They're taking the pits more usually. Do you mean why are all of them in the pit lane? Well, they've just been doing some soft tyre running pretty recently, so they've all gone and set some very, very quick lap times, if that's what you mean. And now they'll be coming out again at some point soon to either go on the scrub tyres and try and set some more quick lap times, or they will simply go onto a different compound. We haven't seen any hard tyre running so far this weekend. Now, a few drivers have been reminded so far this weekend. First day of the driving sessions, of course, for the Formula 1 drivers. The curbs are pretty chunky, and if you do go over them, you're going to get yourself a few problems here or there, and the gravel is not too far away either. So, very easy to get something slightly wrong and turn it into something terribly wrong around here in Imola. So interestingly, the McLaren with their rear wing, I think they're trying to improve not only their downforce, but maybe their top speed, they're saying, on the feed. So, something that they haven't been the best at, but that's an interesting statement, especially for Imola, an interesting upgrade to bring for Imola, because straight line speed isn't necessarily needed. That being said, if they can test it with a better rear wing that's also quicker in a straight line, then they can make sure that they've got it dialed in for the following circuits that they'll be going to. That being said, Monaco is the next one. So, I guess so. I guess if you're going to be running a Monaco wing in Monaco, you can't do any testing ready for Spain. Spain, they're looking at bringing in some extra regulations where the flexi wings will be changed. And then you've got Canada and Austria that do have some really big straight line speed developments. So they're going to take away Monaco because you don't need straight line speed there. Spain, you're going to have a few difficulties. So I think they're trying to get their testing in ready for, well, Spain, Canada and Austria effectively. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. That is my very uneducated guess. I should say educated really, but uneducated guess onto what could be happening with the McLarens, why they're doing their upgrades when they're doing it. Lots of cars getting their laps done and they're now back onto that medium tyre. The chances of us finding any improvement lap times on this medium tyre is fairly slim. But we could see a little bit of a change probably further down the order. Of course, Antonelli's going to be hoping to try and find some sort of lap time improvement, I'm sure. Now looking at the other teams, we already talked about McLaren, Red Bull. I think we talked about Williams and Sauber with no upgrades on their car. We've got also a few from, well, Aston Martin. We've got a huge change. We said about Haas and Aston Martin making big changes. Well, that's the floor, the beam wing for drag reduction, halo mounts and diffuser, all for Aston Martin. So huge changes, lots of them as well, that they're looking to try and gain some extra performance with that car and be a little bit more competitive. Stroll 17th were looking like they were quite strong compared to their teammates so far. Alonso has since gone and beaten that and they have gone to P14. Currently neither Aston Martin driver are out on track. We've got Ocon also in the pit, but other than that everybody else is currently on the black stuff. Lots of rear wing changes it seems to be for Ferrari, with a few changes as well. And then it's Mercedes with an engine cover shape for cooling upgrade, a front suspension and some front wing changes as well. Racing Bulls, they've got some floor changes and some side pod changes. It's Alpine with some front wing and bodywork changes. Of course, we said about Haas having major upgrades as well. Floor, diffuser, rear wing, I believe a few changes there and some rear suspension. So diffuser changes for both Aston Martin and Haas. This Red Bull seemed to be the only one with radiator and wheel ducts. A few other teams, of course, have got cooling, with Mercedes being one of them. But Red Bull really trying to catch up to McLaren with the tyre cooling situation that it seems to be giving the advantage to. They try to appeal it, try to see if they could get it banned, see if it's illegal. Doesn't seem to be going the way they want it to, so now they're going to have to try and come up with the upgrades themselves and find a way to, well, beat them. And if you can't beat them by getting it removed off the car, you're going to have to join them by making the part yourself and trying to find any advantage that you can. That's what Formula 1 is about. McLaren currently are the benchmark. As long as it's legal, as long as they don't do anything dodgy, then they have managed to masterclass the rules, and it seems to be that way so far. 15 minutes on the clock, 3/4 of the way through the session. Still more blocking on track. Lots of cars getting in the way of others. Kimi Antonelli being victim of that, although they seem to have managed to avoid any issues, and they'll be good to go. They can complete that lap. As I said, I don't think we're going to see any improvements, maybe in the final session or final stages of the session. We did see the red flag come out earlier on, and that was because of Gabriel Bortoleto in the final 2 or 3 minutes of the session, crashing at the final corner, on the exit of the final corner. Not really their fault. It was a very, very weird loss of traction from the car. Unless they did something absolutely terribly with the inputs of that car. But, yeah, for Gabriel Bortoleto, that was their session done a little bit early. It meant that everybody else's session were also brought to a premature end. It meant that we didn't see any practice starts. Now, the practice starts are always very useful for the drivers ready for the Sunday. We'll get more opportunities to do that. Will we get the opportunity to do it at the end of FP2 because of the junior categories having to come through? I think we will. So the practice starts will be finally available within the next 12 minutes for the drivers, just over 12 minutes. That was interesting. As we continue. Verstappen also having a few issues here and there with braking once again. As they're getting very close to the back of the Alpine. They're trying to kind of race. And the poor Alpine has had a bit of a hard time. They were being battled a little bit with by the McLarens, and they've just been overtaken by Verstappen. They're all trying to have a go on the Alpine to try and get some practice ready for Sunday, it seems. So, yeah, good for the other teams. The Alpine trying to do their test programs. Maybe a little bit frustrating to have a car in the way for the data, of course, but it is what it is. That's Colapinto, who was getting overtaken by Verstappen there. I'm not entirely sure which Alpine it was being overtaken by which McLaren earlier on. Both are out on either team as well. All four. Lots of cars continuing. Colapinto continues to get harassed by other teams, as it seems to be George Russell now in the DRS range and looking to have a go at making an overtake into turn 1, but they won't quite get there. They'll turn the DRS off and now they'll stick back behind, maybe look to have another go again. But it is George Russell who is backed off. Hadjar goes off, yellow flag. But luckily they have managed to find their way out of that gravel trap and they're good to go, I think. No, they haven't. They haven't got their car out of the gravel trap. Maybe they have. Are they moving? They seem to be moving very slowly if they are doing so. And they are moving. Right, well avoided there from Hadjar, but he is waiting to rejoin the circuit. That's why there's a continued yellow. It's a very busy circuit as everyone is currently out on track. 7 minutes to go. Not what you want to be doing in the final stages. Very awkward to wait, especially with a modern Formula 1 car. You don't have any fans in the car. You just sat there. The car's heating up. The airflow doesn't go through into the ducts. Currently, there isn't really a good opportunity for Hadjar to go back onto the track. Their transponder is gone. They were waiting for so long to try and have another go, or to try and get back on track. Unfortunately, their car stopped. The engine died. I assume it maybe got a bit too hot as it was sat still and turned itself off. Or if they just got themselves beached, are they completely sunk with the rear into the ground? I'm not entirely sure. Their rear end was in the gravel. Their front end not, but their rear end is still in the gravel. That's going to be the red flag out. Once again, in the final stages of the session, will this session continue? Will it restart? Will we get practice races or practice starts come around again? Because right now it looks like we might end up losing another practice start period. Frustrating there for Hadjar, but not a terrible crash into the wall. So they were able to get the car back on track once again, obviously. I think they should be all good for FP3 tomorrow. Even if they did some severe damage, they'd have probably been good with FP3. Bit of a loss of the front end, it looked like, as they came into, on the exit of turn 3 into 4. That's going to be slightly frustrating there for the Racing Bull team. They've got some floor changes on that car. That floor's now going to be exposed as it gets craned away. Not exactly what they want. All the cars are in the track, or in the pit lane. So, yeah, Racing Bull's secrets from their new upgrades with the floor now been exposed. And Isaac Hadjar doesn't seem to really believe it. They're frustrated. They're waiting around a little bit, looking at the car as it gets craned away. Which is strange. You usually want to get back to the pit lane and talk to the engineers, or go and hide in a hole. But seems to be that they are trying to get back on, or not get back on the track, stay and watch it be craned away. Looking at the timings right now, with the car just being removed from the circuit, with 3 minutes on the clock, I very much doubt we'll be going again. There will be I'm trying to think of what I was about to say right there. There will be some barrier repairs need to be done, but actually it seems to be the session is going to continue. The session will resume at 5:58 local time, which is interesting. Didn't expect that one. So we will see possibly some practice starts. The green flag is out, 2 minutes on the clock, and the cars will once again leave for the practice starts, I assume, unless they all stay in and they don't want to do anything with it. So once again, we've seen a little bit of a moment in the final stages of the practice session, as we did in FP1. This time, instead of a lot of damage, or a bit of damage on the car from Bortoletto causing the red flag in the final couple of minutes, we saw a few more minutes, allowing Isaac Hadjar to try and rejoin the circuit, but now allowing actually Isaac's car to be removed from the circuit instead by crane. We do get a few minutes out on track, and we'll see a few cars do a couple of laps, and then they'll do, of course, their practice starts. You'll see everybody jump out of the pit lane to get this done, as they missed out in FP1. A few cars may be racing to try and get to the line, to have a go at maybe another lap, which could be good, but I'll be honest, it's probably going to be unlikely. We do actually see Piastri and Norris go for a set of soft tyres as they leave the pit lane. Most other cars expected to be, or are, already on the medium compound. But yeah, Norris and Piastri on the soft tyres, looking to do their practice starts. 50 seconds on the clock. And we will get to see a couple of laps from a few cars. But a few will finish the session and miss out on a final opportunity. That's Albon, Norris, Piastri, Hülkenberg, Leclerc, all getting laps in. Hamilton should have a go. Then Antonelli and Carlos Sainz will definitely have a go. It's Gasly who might have a look at missing out here. Although I think they should have an opportunity. George Russell, it's Bortoletti actually ahead. It's Gasly who's going fairly slowly, it looks like. So George Russell trying to come through. 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. And Gasly slowing down the pack, not allowing Russell or the Haas, who is, I don't know, Ocon, to have a go. So they will cross the line and finish the session first. And we'll get to see practice starts come about. But it's Albon, Norris and Piastri all looking for some pacey laps. Not quick. You can see that they're not quick at all. 25.5, 25.5, 25.1, 25.2, 29.9. Most cars doing the 25.5, so it's a 25.3 from Carlos Sainz, but the 25.2 and the 25.1 from Piastri and Norris shows that they are pushing the cars a little bit more compared to everybody else. And now the clock is done. The cars come across the line to finish the session. And we will see some practice starts. Of course, Hadjar will not be doing so as they lost the car with 6 minutes to go on the clock. It is Oscar Piastri who tops the times in the second part of practice. The final part of practice on Friday, before running on Saturday for another hour and then qualifying in the later part of the day. We see, as I will say, Piastri once again on top. It's Lando Norris who is under half a tenth, a quarter of a tenth away effectively from their teammate. It's Gasly in P3, it's George Russell, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Isaac Hadjar, Yuki Tsunoda, Alex Albon, Carlos Sainz in P10. It's Lewis Hamilton, Oliver Bearman, Franco Colapinto, Fernando Alonso, Liam Lawson, Gabriel Bortoletti, Lance Stroll, Kimi Antonelli. It's Nico Hülkenberg and it's Esteban Ocon at the back of the pack. Bearman finding some pace with that Haas that has seemed to struggle throughout the weekend so far. Some good running today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for watching. I can't wait to see how it goes tomorrow. Let's see what the teams can really do. It looks strong for Gasly. It looks strong for the McLarens. And it does look fairly strong for Williams, although they maybe didn't get their final runs what they wanted to. But you know what? We got some pretty good running on the soft tyres where the cars really showed some decent pace and pushed the limits a little bit. Gasly on fire. Absolutely on the form of his life, maybe even better than we saw last season, which is pretty impressive because he didn't crash the car once and he was performing pretty well as well. Anyway, enough of that. We'll see you tomorrow for some more watch-alongs. We'll see you later on for the practice lobbies on the F124 game just for a bit of fun. We'll see you then. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.